So that was the biggest challenge, like figuring that part out. I was like a complete outsider to this whole process. I never had experience like interviewing with big tech companies. And for me, the challenge has been that because there's a lot of structure that required a lot of practice, right? And I was not used to like practicing so much before the interviews. They are highly motivated to make money. So they are like more incentivized to keep at it.
Welcome to yet another success story. Today we're speaking to Krishna, who's now a product manager at one of the top tech companies in the world, Meta. In the product industry, Meta really is the gold standard. If you can get an offer from Meta, then you can likely get an offer from any company in the world. Krishna is a living example of breaking into top tech while coming from a startup background. Today he'll share with us how he prepared, what the common pitfalls are in getting into Meta, how Krishna's work in AI impacts all of us, and how you can also make it to Meta. We're keeping this call short since Krishna is a very new parent and in the midst of 2026 planning at Meta. Ideally, I wanted this to be a mock interview, but Krishna and I partnered on his interview journey well before I thought to start a YouTube channel. But there's still a ton to learn from someone who's in the position so many people dream of. Let's get into it. Krishna, thank you for joining us today. In the interest of time, we'll keep this super short. Could you quickly introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background, and then I have some questions for you.
Hey Balaji, thanks for having me on the show. Hi everyone, my name is Krishna. I am a PM at Meta. Prior to Meta, I've been at a bunch of different places. I initially started my career at a very small startup. It was a fintech startup as a product consultant where I was like talking to the customers, getting their requirements and like transitioning them to engineering teams and getting those products delivered. And then I transitioned into a full actual product manager role where I was going across customers and then like managing the product roadmap versus just like gathering requirements and then acting as a liaison to the engineering team between customers. And then from that company, I moved to different startups. Like I moved to a video analytics startup, and then I moved to an ed tech startup. And then finally, I landed a role at Meta very recently. It's been like a year and a half now. But all through, my interest has been leveraging AI to understand vast amounts of data, extract valuable insights for the business, and then provide value to the end customers leveraging AI-based products.
Cool. It seems very rare that somebody is using AI in 2025 to build value for customers.
Yeah, it's not rare in 2025, but it was quite rare in 2016. When I was at this company, we were like trying to, AI was always a thing at like big tech, but in startups, it was not a thing. It was a SaaS company, right? There was no focus on AI. We just had this crazy idea of like, we have like huge amounts of accounts receivables data from customers. So why can't we like leverage that data and build a model which will predict, claims or like invalid deductions from customers? So it was an interesting thing. It was like, story for another time, but yeah.
No, thanks for sharing that. So I'm curious, like during your entire interview season, like what kind of product roles were you targeting? You mentioned that you had a different type of experiences before, primarily came from the startup world, but then there's some security work in there, there's ed tech in there, there's finance in there. How does one end up at Meta from all of that?
Yeah, so I think the kind of roles I was going after this time around was in slightly larger companies. Like I said, I started off my career in a smaller company at High Radius. The company grew. I grew along with the company, and then I went to one more smaller company under like 50 people, and then I moved to one more startup. Like it was all startups, so I kind of felt like there is this missing component from my career where I don't have experience working in a structured environment. I've been working in an unstructured environment where there was a lot of ambiguity. So I was seeking for roles in big tech companies, which would allow me to like complement my career arc to kind of get that experience as well. Working within structure, building products which touch billions of people, as opposed to like building products which touch like a few million, not even a few million. If it's a B2B company, it's a few thousands of customers, right?
Cool. And for all people watching, like we want to make sure that this conversation is helpful to them. So give us like your insights into how your overall interview process was and what would be like your main advice for people who are also aiming to get into Meta one day.
I think the interview process, I'd say, is kind of it's it's hard to generalize the interview process because it varies from companies to companies. And if you're talking to a smaller company, it's slightly different. If you're talking to a big, if you're interviewing with a bigger company, it's again slightly different. I was, again, like I said, focused on getting into larger tech companies such as Meta, Google, Amazon, and of such. What I've realized is the companies at these big tech, most of the big tech companies, the interviews at big tech companies are very, very structured, right? There's like specific kinds of interviews that you have to go through. And there is a clear expectation in terms of how you respond to those questions, or what kind of information or what kind of thought process you put into responding to those questions. And the reason there's a reason why like big tech companies are more structured, because they're not trying to find the best person for the role. They're trying to identify specific patterns and competencies across, right? So you can't like scale at that level of company if you're like trying to interview for a specific role. It won't be fair. So in that sense, it's very repeatable. You just need to know what the expectation from the interview is and what kind of responses would like make the bar and what kind of responses would not make the bar. So that was the biggest challenge, like figuring that part out. I was like a complete outsider to this whole process. I never had experience like interviewing with big tech companies. All my experience was like talking to startups, which is a completely different ballgame altogether, where you essentially focus on your background, focus on your expertise and how your expertise is going to help the company. So it's very, very like individual focus versus at these big companies.
Right.
And for me, the challenge has been that because there's a lot of structure that required a lot of practice, right? And I was not used to like practicing so much before the interviews. I just go wing a lot of the interviews, and then I I fail terribly at some of the interviews and I pass at some of the interviews. And then I realized, okay, if I have to get into big tech companies, then I can't wing the interviews. I have to like have a structured plan in terms of how to prepare, and also a structured approach in terms of how to respond to those interview questions.
Okay, next question, Krishna. Could you quickly tell us in like 30 seconds what the overall interview process for Meta was like, right from the application all the way to the offer?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So for Meta, the interview process is very structured. As soon as you submit an application, if there's a good fit, the recruiter reaches out. For me, recruiter reached out to me. We had the initial discussion, just going through my prior background experiences, and we decided that there's a good fit there. And after the initial screen, the next step is to do an initial like screening interviews, and there will be 2 interviews for the initial screen: product sense and analytical thinking. I can go into each of those interviews, but in the interest of time, because it's very standard, I'll just leave it at that. And after you clear the initial screen, then there's a full loop where there could be potentially 3 interviews or 4 interviews. Again, it's the same: product sense, analytical thinking, and leadership and drive. Leadership and drive is mostly behavioral questions about your background, and they look for specific values that like try to match what your background experiences were with what they're looking for in terms of cultural fit at Meta.
Awesome. So tell me, like, when you were going through this interview process, one of the most common complaints that I've heard from people who are interviewing at companies, especially these top tech companies, is that because you need to do so many practice questions to just get the engine going, a lot of people complain about having low quality mocks. You know, like you think that you're doing high quality mocks, but the person on the other side doesn't know the bar themselves, and you're getting the feedback from someone who's not qualified to give you that, and you mistakenly think that you are getting high quality feedback. So did you experience any of this in your journey?
For sure, right? So it's again, it actually comes with the game, because you have to do a high volume of mocks. You can't always expect the other person to be at the same level of preparation. And I probably am, you know what, the other person is probably thinking the same of me as well. When I was initially doing the mock, the first mock, I probably was absolutely terrible, but I got some feedback and then I iterated on it and I got better. And as I do more and more mocks, the quality of feedback that I give and the quality of feedback that I will be given is also going to improve, right? But yeah, no, there is the paradox here is you don't know, like if there's no way you can assess a person without like having gone through the mock experience with them. in terms of what they are capable of and how the quality of feedback is going to be. People might be great interviewers, by the way, right? So when you do the interview, they're like great at answering the questions, but they might be terrible feedback givers too. So you might be getting very less, but it is what it is. Like that's something that is a problem. I have no solution to that problem. But yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, would there be a way to detect that the person you're doing mock interviews with is giving you good enough feedback, or it's just like, if the feedback that they give really sounds like, hey, this is a lot of new stuff that I'm learning, then you could say that this is good. But otherwise, is there a way to detect whether this person is giving you good feedback, because you yourself don't know what the bar is in that journey?
Yeah, exactly right. So you don't know. Again, like I said, it comes with repetitions. The first few times, probably 10 times or so, you don't know. Like you don't even know what to expect. But after a certain point in time, you would know where you'll like see some patterns emerge. Like if there's a pattern that everyone is saying that you're missing this, then that's probably something which is true, because a lot of people are pointing and giving you the same feedback. Right. But then that patterns need to emerge, right? And for that, you need to do a lot of mocks. Unfortunately, at the very beginning, when you're doing the interviews, because you don't know what the quality of response should be, but you yourself, you cannot assess the quality of feedback that you're getting from the other person.
A quick pause and reminder again, no matter where you are watching this from, I want to share something with you. Low quality peer mocks are a common problem, and they really delay growth for people. And paid individual mocks are very expensive to scale. So I'm launching something that will allow you to get access to affordable, high quality product management coaching, get access to high quality peers, and get your doubts directly answered by me. To make this affordable, we'll be doing this in small groups. TBD on the size of the groups, but the ballpark is it's going to be less than 10. Follow this Instagram account if you're interested. The account's sole purpose, like I mentioned before, is only to keep you informed of these opportunities. I'm not going to be posting a ton. I don't want to be a product management influencer or something like that. My goals are slightly different. Okay, let's get back to it. So with that in mind, like, this is where kind of the coaching situation comes in, right? Like, do I just pay for this and get a vetted professional to look at it? But then the cost of all of this really adds up very, very quickly. And people don't want to spend that much over and over again to get so much feedback. So if someone's on the fence about, getting professional coaching, especially people in their careers who value their time, they potentially are not entry level, they have some money. How do you look at that decision for them?
I think that is a very personal choice. Like it actually depends on individual to individual. You need to, if you're a kind of person who does receive feedback well, and in that case, high quality feedback is probably very important for you, right? Instead of going through the repetitions and then trying to discern the quality of feedback and trying to get that feedback yourself, if you can invest upfront some amount of money, you probably would get that high quality feedback by going the crowd coaching route. But if you're a kind of person who does well, not by getting the feedback, but by just repetitions, and then you figure it out yourself, then in that case, probably not. So it just depends on the kind of person you are. You need to know what works better for you. But I think for the vast majority of the cases, getting high quality feedback is important. So as long as you can get that high quality feedback, I don't think paying money should be a factor, especially if you're like aiming for big tech roles which pay decently well. That cost versus benefit is like way in favor of like the ROI that you get out of it.
Right. I like how you call it decently well. I mean, if this is decently well, then I don't know what is good. But jokes aside, just to wrap up, like, tell me, what kind of stuff are you currently working at Meta? Like, what excites you? What type of teams are you working at Meta?
So I joined the trust and safety organization within Meta when I initially joined. Again, I didn't know what trust and safety was when I joined Meta. I kind of had some idea on what they do. In prior experience at the edtech company was kind of related, so it was mostly ML based role. I support an ML team within the trust and safety organization within Facebook team. What we do is we build like frontier LLM based models to detect violating content, as in you can think about borderline sexual content and anything like you don't want to see on the platform. That's basically the content that we detect and we try to get rid of it. And I keep saying content, but what we actually do is we focus on entities, which is, think of Facebook groups, Facebook pages, user profiles, which are like perpetrating this bad quality material on Facebook and creating bad experience to a larger population of Facebook users. That's what we try to prevent. And we do that by building scalable ML solutions. And Meta is like very advanced in that regard. Their recommendation systems are top notch, and we like take a lot of cues from the recommendation systems. And this is kind of like an anti-recommendation system, non-recommendable, right? So we identify the entities that we don't want to recommend. We identify the entities that we don't want people to find when they're searching, and we try to get rid of it.
Right. Very, very interesting. So like one question that I'm just thinking of right now, like Meta obviously always gets put into a tough position with anything negative that is there on the platform. But for being a marketplace person, I know very well that it's in Meta's best interest to keep the platform clear so that everybody who's there is having a positive experience. So given all that news that always exists, like as someone who's working on the inside as a person trying to solve this problem, what is your perspective or Facebook's perspective as a whole that people on the outside may not often empathize with, may not often understand that this is difficult for Meta as well to pull off because of the scale, because of the real-time nature of things, that a bad post goes live 10 seconds ago and then it can be seen by so many thousands of people in a few minutes. So like, what are some of those challenges that we don't appreciate from the outside that you and the team have to, work hard to make sure that it keeps running smoothly?
Yeah, I can't definitely speak for Meta, but I can speak for myself. The most challenging aspect of this is these people that we are going after, these are highly motivated actors, right? So there is some monetization incentives in them in trying to game the system and trying to like get this content in front of people, trying to hack the distribution system and trying to get money out of Meta. And not just money out of Meta, they also like use this as a means to scam people and then get money off the platform, like not just from Meta, but also try to steal, take advantage of people, actual users of Facebook. And what's so hard about this is, like you rightly called about, right? So this is one content in billions and billions of pieces of content, one profile in billions of profiles. So we need to be very careful in terms of identifying the bad actor, who is actually bad versus who is good, because we don't want to create bad experiences for good people, right? That's very challenging. And essentially that's something we call as like enforcement. We don't want to over enforce on people. We want to be enforcing at the right level. There's always this trade-off between precision and recall. So we can, obviously, if we want to get all the bad actors out, we can optimize for recall and we can like get everything off. But that comes that comes at a cost, which means that good users are also going to be affected. Right. So we optimize for precision so that we only focus on bad actors and not like impact good people on Facebook. Right. And the other thing is, these guys are also adversarial, right? What I mean by that is, as soon as you implement a detection and enforcement mechanism, they change their tactics. Right? So they're always evolving their tactics in response to what Meta does. So there's always going to be like a lag in how Meta responds to it. We can try to stay ahead of it, but again, like I said, they are highly motivated to make money. So they are like more incentivized to keep at it and then keep coming up with new attack patterns and new attack vectors. That's what makes it really challenging, because ML can only learn from patterns. It's not going to like predict what's going to be happening in the future, right? So it's based on what has already happened and what patterns are there, and like based on that we detect and we enforce on it.
Got it. No, thank you for all the work over there. It sounds like in the 90s and early 2000s, we used to have all these different antiviruses on the computers like Norton and McAfee and all of that. And every week or every 2 weeks, they would update the definitions of the antiviruses, because as soon as they create an antivirus, the virus creators create something on top of it, and then it's like a Cold War kind of arms race that starts of updating virus versus antivirus definition. So it seems like some more game theory on that line is going on.
Yeah, exactly. So and then there's always going to be some lag in the sense that we can't like just act on anything. There needs to be a policy.
Right.
We can only like identify content which is not which is violating our policies, and then community standard policies, monetization policies, and only act on those types of contents and types of actors.
Right.
It's not like we can just take anything and everything that we don't like off the platform. Our
Right.
hands are also tied in that sense.
Right.
And it's for the best interest of general public too, because you don't want anyone to take advantage of anybody, right? Even if it's within Meta, or anyone within Meta. So these are all there, and these are all there for a reason. These are guardrails which are set in place so that people have safe online experience, and they enjoy their time on Facebook.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Krishna. We'll leave it at that, and we'll give you some time to relax before you have to grind again. Anyone else who's listening, thank you so much for being here. We try to keep the video as short and punchy as possible to be respectful of Krishna's time and all the viewers' time, to only talk about stuff that's genuinely meaningful. If you have any interesting questions that you would love to ask Krishna or myself, let us know in the comments, and I'll hunt Krishna down and ask him these questions and give you the answers back. Thank you all for joining. Bye.
Thank you.